Recession fears are growing, and for good reason. It definitely feels like we're heading straight into it. Stocks have been seeing red consecutively. And if you're one of the people who are banking on a Fed pivot, you might be out of luck. Are you still hoping for a Fed pivot? Are you seeing the writing on the wall? Are you finding it more and more difficult to get by? Did you get a very unexpected letter from your landlord indicating that your rent is going to be going up in the next couple of months? Did you see your Social Security check increase going into 2023? Did you get a notice about your Social Security paycheck planning to be increased going into 2023? More and more states are saying that they're cutting back on the allotments for SNAP and EBT. Now, with the way that things are in our country, defending our finances is a priority. But more data is coming out that shows that our health should also be considered. This is also due to problems that the youth are having. Now, talking about our kids, would you ever want their doctors or their teachers to tell them that their gender is wrong or that they need to transition for them to be who they truly are? Comment a quick yes or no on that one. Now, I have a few announcements from the United States Assistant Secretary for Health that will shock you. Now, I hope you guys are ready for today's video, but before we begin, if you're in need of the truth when it comes to the U.S. economy, Washington, D.C., passive income, Social Security, government subsidies, government grants, SBA loans, SBA grants, and everything in between, EBT, SNAP benefit updates, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you guys always dropping a like for the videos. I always appreciate the support. And if you own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. The link is in the description down below, you guys. All right, so it is becoming more and more common to see the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and even the NASDAQ taking dip after dip. It's not even new to see losses nowadays. The same can be said for our 401ks, our Roth IRAs, but I try and stay clear and steer clear of looking at that every single day. I don't want my financial pain to become too emotional. You know what I mean? This continued downhill trend has affected millions of Americans across the country, and it's led to some being even delinquent on their credit cards for the very first time. It's also forced some households and individuals to apply for SNAP and EBT benefits or even visit their local food banks. We've even seen people we know file for bankruptcy. Some have lost housing and either been forced to rent or become homeless. This is a sign of what is coming for many people. Now, granted, it's not moving as quickly for others, thankfully. Now, a recent poll found that many Americans are finding it harder to afford gifts during the holiday season. Some people don't even have a budget for gifts. This is inflation grabbing at our financial freedom, and I really don't think it's going to be easy for it to let go of us. In the poll, 57% of U.S. adults said that it was much more difficult to purchase gifts this time around, with inflation being such a thorn on our sides. Back in 2021, only 40% reported experiencing this during the holiday shopping. Now, I should also note that 91% of those who responded to the poll said that things have become so difficult that they've now been forced to cut back on buying gifts. Now, I'm curious, have you guys been cutting back on anything recently? Now, speaking of cutting back, this is alarming, guys, as the CDC has had to expand the body mass index charts for severely overweight kids. This is insane. Just for context, more than 4.5 million children and teenagers suffered from severe obesity in 2018, and the numbers, they're only getting worse. Now, I know that we talked about the state of the economy a lot here on the channel, and it's great if you guys are taking some of the opinions that I share regarding our finances, but I do implore you to look into your physical health too. The crashes that are coming will test all of us, be it through our finances or our physical well-being. It's up to us to make a change in our lives to better prepare ourselves to face them all. Now, at the end of the day, it should be you against yourself. And I know that you're all winners. Now, shifting gears just a little bit, let's talk about the youth from a different perspective. We all have our own opinions when it comes to gender, right? I respect that. But if we're talking about science, biologically, there are two. Listen to what Rachel Levine, the Biden administration's Assistant Secretary for Health, has to say. For the record, Levine is an openly transgendered individual.
Personally, I have no room in my heart for hatred, and frankly, I have no time for intolerance. We need to all work together against this intolerance until everyone living in America can live their life openly and freely without fear of prejudice, scorn, or attack. I believe that the lessons of recent history indicate that our mission as doctors and other medical nurses and other medical professionals needs to include a proactive rather than merely a passive rejection of this intolerance. You know, we have the ability to share information, to speak with authority that our training and experience have given us, and work together to assert our right to practice medicine as we were taught and to practice it without discrimination. So I encourage all of you to think of yourselves as ambassadors to your communities, ambassadors for science, ambassadors for compassion, and ambassadors for care. These conversations don't have to be limited or restricted to a medical setting, offer yourselves as informational resources, not just for youth, but for school teachers, principals, school boards, professional organizations, recreation centers, county commissioners, and others who would benefit from this information and your perspective. Please proactively seek opportunities to speak about what you know. Our task is to educate the public in as many forums as possible. And we need to have these conversations that question the assumptions that are underlying today's attacks on trans people. Pushing back the veil of ignorance demands this extra effort, and this is the challenge before our profession. For almost 40 years now, I have considered it an honor to be a doctor. I believe in our role as healers. I believe in our role as truth tellers. And the truth that we need to confront now is that medicine and science are being politically perverted around this country that destroys human lives. And we have reached a tipping point for the role in medicine and civic life, for the health and well-being of LGBTQI plus youth and other Americans. Those who attack our community are driven by an agenda of politics. It has nothing to do with medicine. It has nothing to do with science. It has nothing to do with warmth, empathy, compassion, or understanding. They are rejecting the value of supportive medicine, rejecting well-established science, and simply rejecting basic human compassion. We, as doctors and as people who love our communities and love our nation, have to confront the fact that the language of care and compassion that they're using is being taken for granted to literally tear our communities apart. So we have to stand up. We have to take a stand on behalf of those who are being hurt. That's what we do in medicine, even when it's difficult.
She made a lot of points here, but let's start with science since this was repeated multiple times. So science defines two genders, especially if we're talking about the biological aspect of it. To add to that, we all have our biological instincts too. It's when we see someone and we assume that they are male or female, but society has now come to a point where it doesn't matter if you didn't know about someone's transition from male to female or vice versa. You don't get the right to decide on your own what gender someone is. Even though, again, it's your innate biological instinct to say which conforms to which gender. She's also pushing for the youth to take medicine. It could be cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers, but if doctors abide by their Hippocratic oath, they might not provide these to them. This medicine leaves people sterile, and there's evidence of people who have decided to detransition who are suffering from hair loss in their 20s. Think about this for a second. They try and force their choices on us, and that's totally fine, right? Seriously? But if people suddenly avoid an experimental drug, then we're conspiracy theorists. Why can't kids just grow up without all this talk? Why does this have to be forced on them? Do you want this forced on your kids? Can they not find out for themselves whatever they want to do with their lives without the pressure of gender? What kind of world would we be living in if the people that we worried about are doctors and our teachers? These should be some of the most trustworthy people in our society. But let's check in with the president. Is this the future that he sees for your kids?
Mr. President, this is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love you.
Thank you. I am extremely privileged to live in a state that allows me access to the resources I need, and that decision is just between me and my doctors. But many states have lawmakers that feel like they can involve themselves in this very personal process. Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming healthcare?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
There you have it. Let me ask you, are you willing to have your kids ingest medicine that affects their gender in any way, shape, or form? Please let me know where you stand on this. Hit me up in the comments. I'm really interested to hear what you guys' opinions are. Now, before I go, please make sure to drop a like for the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. I'm also open to hear from you guys if you're in a financial pinch these days. I can show you the ropes in terms of proper budgeting, side hustles, creating multiple streams of income, and also strengthening your cash flow, wise investments, be it the stock market, real estate investing, basically ways to alleviate some of your financial burdens. Don't be shy to get in touch. You can join the Patreon family in the link in the description down below. Appreciate you guys watching. You guys are awesome. Y'all be safe out there.